March 1944. Cold German winter pressed relentlessly against the walls of Stalag Luft III, a prison camp deep in Zagan, now modern-day Żagań, Poland. The prisoners, dozens of American and Allied airmen, sat in cramped barracks, counting the days since their capture. Each day was the same: roll call, forced labor, inspections, and the constant presence of German guards. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every misstep could mean punishment or death. Despite the grim routine, the prisoners never surrendered their spirit. Among them, a small group of determined men hatched a daring plan, one that would defy the Nazis and push the limits of human ingenuity. They called it the Great Escape. The objective was audacious: dig tunnels beneath the camp to allow dozens of airmen to slip past guards undetected. Every detail mattered. Tools were improvised from spoons, cans, and scraps of wood. Dirt was hidden in the barracks, carried out in pockets or released through clever ventilation schemes. The men faced impossible odds. Discovery meant execution. The cold penetrated every layer of clothing, and hunger gnawed at their strength. Guards patrolled with dogs, lights pierced the darkness, and any mistake could ruin months of work. Yet the prisoners continued, night after night, digging, measuring, and reinforcing tunnels. Their determination became a lifeline. Hope became their greatest weapon. As tunnels grew longer and plans became more intricate, camaraderie strengthened. Men shared stories of home, whispered secrets, and motivated each other to keep going. Every inch of progress underground was a victory against despair, a statement that they refused to be defeated. Tensions ran high. Sleep was short. Exhaustion threatened to crush the body and spirit, but the mind remained sharp. Leaders coordinated efforts, assigning tasks, ensuring security, and maintaining secrecy. Every man had a role, from digging to forging documents, from scouting patrol patterns to crafting civilian clothes for the escapees. As March nights deepened, the tunnels stretched farther beneath the camp. The air was thick, dusty, and often suffocating. Yet with every shovel of earth removed, the prisoners moved closer to freedom. They were trapped, yet unbroken, and each heartbeat carried the weight of a dangerous, audacious hope that soon they could disappear into the night and slip from the clutches of the enemy. Thus began the story of the Great Escape, a tale of courage, ingenuity, and the unyielding human spirit under the most dire circumstances. As March 1944 pressed on, the tension in Stalag Luft III grew unbearable. The tunnels had taken months of secretive labor. Every inch of soil removed, carefully hidden. Every plank and beam fashioned from scraps. Yet for the prisoners, the hardest work was not digging, but preparing for the moment when everything could fall apart in an instant. The escape had to be flawless. Guard routines were memorized, patrol patterns studied. Airmen forged civilian clothes, passports, and travel documents with painstaking precision. Every detail mattered. A misplaced uniform, a wrong accent, a careless word could mean immediate capture or death. The risk was constant, yet the men pressed forward with unwavering determination. At night, whispers filled the barracks. Men exchanged strategies, rehearsed movements, and quietly mapped out escape routes. Every sound, the snap of a twig, the bark of a dog, a distant German command, sent waves of fear and adrenaline through the ranks. Yet beneath the anxiety, an electric undercurrent of hope surged. This hope became a force, driving the men to continue despite exhaustion, hunger, and the ever-present danger. The tunnels themselves were masterpieces of improvisation. Air vents were rigged to circulate oxygen, shoring held the ceilings against collapse, and secret compartments concealed dirt and tools. The work was grueling, often requiring crawling on hands and knees in darkness, the soil heavy and suffocating. Yet step by step, foot by foot, the airmen carved a path to freedom beneath their captors. Leadership was essential. Officers coordinated the effort, assigning roles based on skill and strength. Some men specialized in digging, others in forging documents, while yet others observed guard behavior or smuggled tools. Trust was absolute. Betrayal would mean disaster. And yet, amidst the fear and danger, camaraderie flourished. The men relied on one another for both survival and morale, forming bonds that would last a lifetime. As the night of the escape approached, tension reached its peak. Every heartbeat, every whisper, every shadow in the barracks held the potential for discovery. The air was thick with anticipation. Months of planning, labor, and sacrifice were about to be tested in a single, perilous night. The prisoners of Stalag Luft III had built more than tunnels. They had built hope, a hope that no walls, guards, or winter cold could crush. And as darkness fell, that hope would be put to the ultimate test. The great escape was about to begin. The night was pitch black, the cold biting through thin uniforms, as the prisoners of Stalag Luft III prepared to execute the most daring escape of the war. Months of meticulous planning, endless digging, and relentless secrecy all came down to this single night. Every man knew that one wrong move could mean instant capture or death. The first group descended into the tunnel, crawling on hands and knees through the narrow, suffocating passage. Dust choked their lungs, and the wooden shoring groaned under the weight of the earth above. Yet they pressed forward, driven by the promise of freedom and the burning desire to survive. Outside, the camp was quiet. Guards pacing the perimeter in their nightly routines, unaware of the invisible army slipping past them. One by one, the prisoners emerged into the dark forest beyond the camp's fences. The relief of leaving the barbed wire behind was immediate. But the danger had only just begun. German searchlights, patrols, and barking dogs threatened every step. Each man had memorized escape routes. But in the chaos of night, a single misstep could be fatal. Panic and adrenaline intertwined. Some men froze under fear, while others ran, hearts pounding, lungs burning, praying they would not encounter a guard. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound, a footstep, a snapping branch, and could signal discovery. The forest, once a distant hope, became a gauntlet of terror. Back in the camp, alarm bells suddenly rang. A guard had noticed something. Perhaps the flicker of movement, the misplaced earth, the faint echo of a tunnel exit. Chaos erupted as searchlights cut through the night, illuminating the trees and the desperate figures racing through them. Shots rang out, shouts pierced the air, and the darkness became a deadly maze. Despite the carnage and confusion, many men escaped. Their courage and quick thinking allowed them to disappear into the forest, some finding shelter in abandoned barns, others blending with civilians or navigating toward Allied lines. Yet for every success, there were those captured, wounded, or killed. The night was both a triumph and a tragedy, a testament to human ingenuity and the brutal cost of daring defiance. By dawn, the camp was in uproar. Guards scoured the surrounding area, while the remaining prisoners huddled in fear, knowing their audacious plan had partially succeeded, but at great cost. The great escape had begun, an unforgettable story of courage, desperation, and the relentless pursuit of freedom under the most dangerous circumstances. The days following the escape were a relentless test of survival. For the men who had slipped past the fences of Stalag Luft III, freedom came with a price. Every step through the snow-covered forests and open fields carried the threat of capture or death. The cold bit at their faces, hunger gnawed at their bellies, and fatigue weighed down every limb. Yet surrender was never an option. Groups of escapees moved cautiously, navigating by memory maps smuggled from the camp or the stars above. They relied on stealth, avoiding roads and villages where German patrols might spot them. Each encounter with civilians was tense. A friendly face could save them. A suspicious one could alert the authorities. Every sound, every movement had to be interpreted with caution. Meanwhile, the Germans were in relentless pursuit. Hundreds of troops scoured forests and fields, dogs tracking scent, vehicles racing along roads. Communication between escapees was limited, forcing men to make life-and-death decisions alone. Some split into smaller groups to avoid detection, while others relied on sheer endurance and luck. Every mile of progress brought both hope and risk. The human spirit shone in the darkest moments. Soldiers helped one another through exhaustion and injury. Some crawled through icy streams to avoid patrols. Others shared meager food rations, knowing that survival depended on unity. The camaraderie forged in months of captivity became a lifeline, each man's determination lifting the others through fear and fatigue. Tragedy, however, was never far. Many escapees were recaptured or killed, a grim reminder of the perilous gamble they had taken. Yet even in the face of such losses, the survivors pressed on, motivated by hope, courage, and the unyielding desire to return home. Each day became a struggle against the elements, the enemy, and the limits of human endurance. By the end of these grueling days, the escapees had proven extraordinary resilience. Their journey was not yet complete, but their bravery, ingenuity, and relentless determination had carried them farther than anyone thought possible. The Great Escape was no longer just a daring plan. It was a testament to the unbreakable human spirit, a story that would echo through history as one of courage and sacrifice in the face of almost certain death. By the 5th and 6th days, the remaining escapees faced their final trials. Some had made it into small towns, blending with civilians, relying on forged papers and sheer luck. Others moved silently through forests, avoiding roads and patrols, their hunger and exhaustion pushing them to the brink of collapse. Every step was a gamble, every decision a matter of life or death. For the Germans, the hunt intensified. Dozens of recaptured prisoners were executed, a harsh and tragic reminder of the stakes. Yet for those who survived, the taste of freedom became a powerful motivator. Courage, ingenuity, and the bonds formed in captivity guided them, helping them endure the harshest conditions imaginable. Eventually, the lucky few reached Allied lines, where relief and triumph mingled with grief for fallen comrades. The Great Escape had partially succeeded, but the cost was immense. The bravery of those who risked everything under the shadow of almost certain death became a symbol of human resilience and defiance. The story of Stalag Luft III spread quickly, inspiring both soldiers and civilians. It highlighted not only daring ingenuity, the tunnels, the forged documents, the meticulous planning, but also the extraordinary courage required to act against impossible odds. The escapees had demonstrated that determination, hope, and teamwork could defy even the most oppressive circumstances. Today, the Great Escape stands as a testament to the human spirit. The men of Stalag Luft III showed that even in the darkest hours, ingenuity, courage, and perseverance could carve a path to freedom. Their legacy endures as a story of heroism, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of liberty, inspiring generations to understand that even when surrounded by danger, the human will can triumph over fear. The daring airmen of Stalag Luft III were more than prisoners. They were symbols of hope and defiance, proving that courage, planning, and sheer determination could challenge the mightiest oppressors, and sometimes even change the course of history.
This were the one of the camps. Stalag V111C. This is Stalag V111C from 1939 to 1945. It's now part of the museum. Oof, how low is it?
It's 3 foot, then it goes further. Bigger.
Would I be able to fit down there?
Yes. Well, it gives you an insight of what. I'm inside the tunnel.
And this is the tunnel, guys. Oh, yeah. Oh, oh. Yeah, okay. Come in, I'm coming. Oh, oh, oh. Oh. I'm pulling. Oh God. Oh. Oh. Yes. I'm pulling. I'm pulling. Oh, hey. I'll have a drink when I get out of here. I can't go any further.
Go on, you can.
I can't, it's stuck.
You're not stuck.
That's as far as it can go. Oh, a minute, I think I've done it.
Push it with your feet. That's it. Right, you're there. And you're out.
Oh, yeah,
Go out. Slide your bum up.
outside of me, bro.
And push on side, don't hold your side. And put yourself up.
Okay.
Send on and go up.
Oh, God.
Go on, come there.
Jeepers in that. Oh.
Now now. You see what's it like, Jamie? If you can do it, now you see you've got the experience now. And then once you've done that, you've got to run and get away. It's a lot of experience, isn't it?
I'm out of breath.
Yeah. Now you've got
I've got my car back my back.
elbow. Now you've got clear and you've got clear. Now you see what I'm saying to you. Other end.
You let me go and do that again?
No, but I want you to get the feeling. Now you have to picture that. That's what. But don't forget, we're longer than that. You have to do to get out. That's what I wanted to think of it. Now you see what I'm saying to you. Now you've got to taste what you have to do. these are the lockers they used to have. But it's all locked up and what I want to open, try them all.
It's like a teaching classroom, talk classroom, this. Still can walk, can't we? You have to twist the angle. That one's locked. You have to twist the angles really hard and pull. No, that's locked. Let's go do this, Dad.
Not too cold. Yeah, we'll do that last. We'll do that. So we're going to do the cane station. That's not the cane station, that's all okay.
You don't go in the hole.
Oh, what did you always look at? Yeah. Go ahead, give me that line. Yeah, always about 10 minutes we use that. So we go there quite often. And now I do see a few of them. There's some more to it always, but I'm not counting it, and there's a few there as well.
You've got your light on, you know.
Oh, it's off. Thank you.
Yeah. You have to get your head. Like the big jungle.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Your fire pit and your swimming pool. Here, guys. A Stalag Luft III. A bit of escape, yep.
I remember 4 years ago, we were only a small little project for the whole thing.
This is where it took.
This is where the basic
Yeah.
start. This is your doorway,
Yeah.
basically. So you walk through your doorway, right? Bunk banks down both sides,
Yeah.
basically. And then
This is where they started the.
this is where they started. Harry,
Yeah.
you can see basically what it was like a lump of concrete is where they started it.
Yeah. The fire place.
This is where they started the tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, they blocked it off, but this is where they started it.
Yeah. And you got.
Yeah, and then
Oh, that's just where the brick. Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, this what this was one of the supports. So you would have support underneath.
That's what I said, we put one come.
Is that yours?
Yes. Shall we see that? You'll see it. That's right. Come over here. And as I said, is there.
So who's he?
Isn't it Alexander MacDonald? But everybody called him Andy because that was his name. So they called him Big Mac because he was a rugby player.
And who's he to you?
He's my uncle.
Your uncle?
Yeah, so. Still done it. You filming?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's what I have. Dad, we've got family members at Berlin Cemetery.
I know we have.
I know that. I'll put some light on. There you go.
Don't need no light on.
No. Just be careful at roofs in here because some of them are a bit.
Don't tell you that.
This is Stalag Luft III, where the Great Escape happened, and this is where it is now, guys. Of course, you've got the Harry Tunnel here as well. That's the air raid shelter in front of you.
Yeah.
This is the train station. He's going to take you down to the locomotive.
Take it off on one.
Yeah.
It's cool out, you know. Yeah.
Well, if it had all gone to plan, these guys would have been on trains and spread out all over
This is the train station they did the escape from.
Platform 1 and 2.
Yeah. This one and this one. So it's this one across here and this one. I was looking at them, what they were.
Tickets and stuff.
What? This is the Russian war cemetery in Zagan, not far away from where the Great Escape actually happened.
We've just passed the Polish border, gone over the bridge, done the security checks, and now we're in a little town known as Żagań. And in this town, in a heavy wooden area, there was a very, very, very famous camp. The camp is famous for being the place where 80 men escaped, and was made famous in the movies and, as people know it, as the Great Escape. The real name for the camp was Stalag Luft III. The German Luftwaffe started taking prisoners as of 1st of September 1939. The Polish campaign, September to October 1939. The Western Europe, May 1940. The Soviet Union, June 1941. Stalag III, the Great Escape, was actually one of the camps that was actually elected for Allied prisoners. It was known as a camp where people could not escape. It was specially built. It had the jewel of the crown. It had sound systems actually buried into the floor. It had specially trained guards as well in this camp. The camp was actually built to stop Allied prisoners from escaping. In 1944, there were over 10,500 prisoners ordered in these camps. And it was actually designed to stop the people from escaping, going into the German countryside, Polish countryside, and making their way home to England. There still remains of Stalag III, the Great Escape. There's still buildings around. We have the infirmary, we have the entrance cooler, and we have 7 beetling huts of where it was there. We also have the tunnel, which of course is known as Harry, which is now laid out by a friend. Going to the war memorial, and it is a memorial of the 8 men that actually sadly was shot in cold blood, and of course the ones that was holding at the camp as well.
This podcast is part of the National Archives War on Film series, marking the 70th anniversary of the start of the Second World War. Download more podcasts at nationalarchives.gov.uk.
The Great Escape is one of the most oftenly repeated Second World War films, and it depicts the true story of a large number of Allied airmen who escaped from a prisoner of war camp, Stalag Luft III, in Poland in 1944. Stalag Luft III was based on 5 compounds with thousands of prisoners of war. What the Germans had actually done was to gather together a lot of very experienced escapers and attempted escapers into one basket. The idea behind the Great Escape was to put as many prisoners of war out into Germany and tie up as much of the German resources as possible. 3 tunnels were dug: Tom, Dick and Harry. During their excavation, Tom was discovered, so the escapers carried on with Dick and Harry. Eventually, Harry was chosen, and in March 1944, 76 men got out of the tunnel before the tunnel was discovered.
The plan was for 160 officers, with 40 in reserve, to escape during darkness on the night of 24th and 25th of March. Those to go first were selected by an escape committee. They were men best suited for the escape, such as those who spoke German fluently. The rest were chosen by ballot. The escapers were told not to carry identification discs, because it was thought that if they were caught near the camp, they could for a short time pretend to be foreign workers from a neighbouring labour camp. Most of the escapers decided to travel in pairs, and they chose their own partners. All were provided with forged passes. Their clothes were mostly modified British uniforms, dyed, altered, and with different buttons. Only in very few cases were the escapers dressed in genuine civilian clothes.
On hearing of the escape, Hitler ordered Goering and Himmler and other key Nazis to Bavaria, where he ordered that those prisoners, when they were captured, should be shot. Of the 76 who escaped, 3 are known to have scored what's called the home run. The remaining prisoners, 50, were selected by the Gestapo and shot on Hitler's orders. But of course Hitler had actually wanted to have them all shot. To get an idea of more information about the Great Escape and the selection process whereby the 50 were selected from those who were recaptured, visit the National Archives and look at the documents on the National Archives website.
This podcast includes images and extracts taken from records at the National Archives and is copyright of the Crown.
Immediately after the Second World War, the Allies sought justice for crimes committed against them. Britain pursued one war crime more than any other. The investigator was Frank McKenna, ex-detective turned RAF policeman. The crime was murder, the worst atrocity against Allied airmen of the entire war. The victims were 50 unarmed prisoners, shot in cold blood by the Gestapo after the Great Escape.
It was the coldest March for 30 years. There was snow on the ground and the conditions outside were brutal. It was evident to us that the Germans knew that there was a tunnel being built, and they'd searched the block several times actually and not found it.
The weather was getting worse and the processes were all dated, and of course those would be wasted. And that'd be an awful long time to have to do them all again. What we had was about 9 months' work.
On the night of March the 24th, 1944, 200 Allied airmen sat packed into Hut 104 at Nazi Germany's most secure prisoner of war camp in Zagan, near the Polish border. They were set to take part in the most ambitious prison breakout of the Second World War. It came to be known as the Great Escape. And it happened because of one man.
Well, I can remember hearing the name Roger Bushell quoted, because he was one of the legendary escapers. He'd been out several times, stayed out for quite a long time, but then he hadn't appeared back again. And I heard his name being spoken of as somebody who might have been killed. And then I remember a distinct note of elation when people said that Roger Bushell's coming back. And there he was put in charge of escaping. One felt then that the thing was in safe hands.
He was a man of extreme ability, intelligence, and above all, single-mindedness. Whatever he did, he put his whole efforts into it. His real objective was to achieve this grand slam, as it were, the big tunnel.
Bushell harnessed the manpower and skills of the camp. 600 men had spent a year digging, forging documents, and turning uniforms into civilian clothes. What the organization couldn't make had to be acquired. The few German speakers became scroungers, bribing guards for whatever was needed. One of them was Dennis Cochrane, fluent in German since he was 18.
Dennis was the eldest, then was Keith, and then myself, and then a younger brother 4 years later. I think we all knew without any doubt at all that he would be railing against the captivity. He'd be like a caged lion.
Dennis Cochrane had joined the RAF in 1940 and been shot down over the Channel. He'd been a prisoner for over a year.
My mother suddenly died, and we didn't know what to do about telling Dennis. We knew it would be a terrible news for him to have in those circumstances. But of course, as time went on, there was no option but to tell him. And his next letter came back and he said, "This is the worst day of my life." So the news obviously affected him most frightfully. That, I think, would have strengthened his resolve even more so if it had needed it. His letters then were always, "I'll be home soon."
Home was on the mind of many that night. Tom Kirby Green, Bushell's head of security, hadn't seen his wife or young son for more than 2 years.
My adored darling, I am thinking so much of you now, and long so hard for you. I feel so grateful for your love and tenderness, and so humble. Soon, I hope, I shall be able to make the world a paradise for you and for Colin. I love you, darling.
What more can I say? Kisses to you, your Thomas. This is my father's letter written on the day of the escape. Now that letter is shorter than the others because he didn't have much time. But I don't think he probably could find enough words really to say all the things he wanted to say, although he did try. He was basically a very, very gentle person, I think. He liked cars, he liked sailing, and he loved my mother. He really did, enormously.
and I think he loved me. I just know that I missed him. And he was this kind of distant sort of hero. As we came in, we were allocated to a particular part of the hut. The orders were to sit down and stay there until you were called. It was actually remarkably quiet, I think, considering what was about to happen. I had papers as a Yugoslav woodworker. My colleague I was going with, a chap called Soteris Skanzaklaus, a Greek fighter pilot, he had, of course, had papers as a Greek. My own plan was to get into Czechoslovakia, try and get down the Danube into Greece, where, of course, my partner would have been useful. He might go to help us get over into Turkey, neutral territory. So that was our rather ambitious plan. I was supposed to be a French worker. I had a smattering of French, schoolboy French, which is and documents which might pass a cursory inspection. I had a small quantity of genuine German currency, which would have been enough to buy me a ticket on a local train where you didn't need a travel permit.
Those who weren't going by train were just told the best thing to do is go south, and when you get into Czechoslovakia, you may find that they're helpful. But we sort of mugged up a phrase in Czechoslovakian, which I can't remember exactly, but it went something like this. Ja prisaham pri smarti maj matki josem anglický officer. I swear by the death of my mother that I am an English officer. Well, you always think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light's going to be home. We thought it was very, very difficult to escape from Germany. And probably less than 1% of people who got out of camps got home. We thought there'd always be a chance.
But things went wrong from the start. It took over an hour to open the tunnel exit because the ground was frozen. And when they finally broke through, the diggers realized there had been a terrible mistake. The tunnel wasn't long enough to reach the safety of the woods.
Well, the tunnel should have come out in the wood. The reason it was short, I don't know. I think, putting it bluntly, I think the surveyors boomed, and we couldn't get out and measure it on the ground.
Bushell and his team quickly devised a system to get the men out without being seen in the open. But valuable time had been lost. Already the escape was nearly 2 hours behind schedule.
The thing is, they didn't come and tell us what had happened. We just sat there and waited and waited. You know, you couldn't all chatter or anything. You just had to sit and sort of think your thoughts, because the guards did patrol at night outside.
Roger Bushell was number 7 into the tunnel, in the first group out. Following him, his escape partner, Frenchman Bernard Scheidhauer, number 8. Dennis Cochrane, number 16, travelling alone. Midnight, Tom Kirby Green, number 21. Escape partner, Gordon Kidder, Canadian, number 20. Jimmy James was number 39.
Finally, the word came for us to go, and, it was a very exhilarating moment, because we climbed down the shaft. It was like 30 foot down, like going down a ship's hold. And we finally got to the exit hole and looked up and saw the stars.
Jimmy James went out at 1:30 a.m. with Greek escaper Nick Skanzikas.
As you got through to the end, you were told to, you were guided, over there it is, cheerio, and you climbed up the ladder. And I had a hell of a job climbing up this ladder because it's pitch dark and I just couldn't get it right. Having got onto the first rung, I couldn't bend my knee far enough to get onto the second rung. But what I did, in fact, was pull myself up hand over hand, up 30 feet, and sort of stop a bit and then pull myself up a bit more and finally get to the top.
Les Broderick, travelling with Canadian Henry Birkeland, was number 52 out of the tunnel.
And when I got into the woods and looked back, it was amazing this thing hadn't been found because there was a column of steam rising out of the hole. It was so hot down there and so cold outside.
6 hours in, and it was all going so well. But luck ran out at 5 a.m. A guard had stumbled on the tunnel exit. The escape was over.
But sometime in the early hours of the morning that heard a single shot. And you could feel the shock of that shot sort of quivering throughout the whole camp, and everybody else would be listening for that.
It was pandemonium. We knew immediately that the balloon had gone up, and it won't be long before the goons are here. You've got to destroy everything you could, which we promptly did. And the next thing is being hustled onto the parade ground. Obviously, they were trying to count, and I suppose the objective of those who were playing up was to fool the people on how many had got out, numbers. And they only do it by trying to sort of fall out of one rank and go into another, that sort of thing. There were 1 or 2 calls for them to still stand, so forth. They still tried it on, and finally the commandant stepped forward, drew and cocked his pistol, and said, "I shall personally shoot the next officer who moves."
Of the 200 escapers, 76 were free. But now, they had to get away.
We got to our station about, I think it must have been about 4:30 in the morning. There was a Pole called Bonshine who was detailed to get our tickets because he spoke fluent German. And he had a leave pass, and he pushed this into the ticket clerk and said, 12 tickets to Bóbr. And the man looked a bit surprised and went away and came back again and said, 12? And Monshine said, aggressively, "Yeah, 12. And glared at him, and he went away again and produced our tickets. We looked out on a very snowy, bleak landscape, and after a while the Dodger leant over and said in a stage whisper, said, "I haven't seen such a snowy scene since I left Montreal."
I remember Plunkett telling me Roger Bushell came along the corridor, and he just put his hand down and slipped his hand into Plunkett's and just gave him a slight squeeze of the hand. didn't say anything, didn't look at him. I noticed he was doing this to all the other escapers who were standing in the train. And this is Roger Bushell just saying that he was still in charge.
For those not travelling by train, it was hard going.
It was all pine forest around there. And we got into an area where the snow was quite deep, and we laboured along and decided, right, we will have to. It's light now, we'll have to settle down and hope. And we could hear voices all day practically, but no one came near us, luckily. I can remember clearly, I remembered all these stories of the Arctic that I'd read when I was a kid about whatever you do, don't fall asleep in the snow because you won't wake up.
My father and Gordon Kidder were trying to get to Czechoslovakia. Now, what they were going to do after that, I don't know. Except, I think, hope that the partisans would somehow get them to somewhere neutral or somewhere where they could link up with British forces or something. So I think he got out. He tried to get out and started the escape thinking he had a chance at least. And a chance had to be something to be taken.
The Germans had already launched a nationwide manhunt. But when Hitler got the news, the day after the escape, he flew into a rage. That same afternoon, Gestapo heads in 8 German cities received unprecedented orders, as Frank McKenna discovered 3 years later.
Tell me, how did you receive these orders?
Orders were received by teleprint, marked for my eyes only.
And what did they say?
From memory, they said, the escape of officer prisoners is a menace to internal securities. As a deterrent, the Führer has ordered that more than half of the escaped officers are to be shot. After interrogations, they will be returned to their original camp and killed en route. These shootings were to be explained by reporting that the recaptured officers were killed whilst trying to escape or while resisting arrest, so that nothing can be proved later.
Hitler's first reaction had been to shoot them all. His senior advisors did their best to dissuade him from an act that would break every rule of war. Then shoot more than half, retorted the Führer. Himmler, head of the Gestapo, chose a figure. 50 would die. Bushell and Scheidhauer, traveling west, made good progress by train. They were heading for France, where Scheidhauer had contacts who could get them away to England. Dennis Cochrane, traveling alone, was also heading west. He planned to cross the border into neutral Switzerland, and from there to freedom.
I think he probably felt he could get farther on his own. He was one among the very early escapees, I think about number 7 or 8. I think the fluent German speakers had priority. Those who stood more chance of getting at farther distance. I think he thought whatever happened that he would come through. And I think even with the escape, he would have gone into it thinking he would succeed. Not just we'll disrupt the German nation, but I think he personally thought he would succeed.
But by now, over 100,000 German troops had joined the hunt for the escapers. The net was closing in.
We walked to Hirschberg West Station, which had trains going down to the Czech border. We were intercepted before we could start buying any tickets by a policeman and a civilian. He said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, we're going to buy tickets." He said, papers. And I showed him my pass, and he just put it in his pocket. I said, "Well, look, I've got to get down to Belgrade to have Yugoslavia, see my old mother in German." And he said, "Well, that's all right. You can come down to the station and explain all that."
Now it was so miserable and cold, everything was wet through. And then about the middle of the night, there's old Henry Birkeland started mumbling and talking to himself, and we thought there's something wrong with him, and he was suffering from something. And I decided, well, we've got to get under cover tonight at least. In the distance we saw a speck of light and thought, well, there must be something there. Approached this hut, knocked on the door, and the reason the lights were on was because there were 4 German guards billeted there, and they came out with their rifles, and that was the end of our walk.
Well, of course, we all met in the police station, and we were all marched down. Men are called to policemen, 8 of us, and we were all shoved into the same cell. The fact remains that we were beaten by the weather, because if it had been warmer, we probably wouldn't have gone into the town at all or tried to get trains. We'd probably tried to get across the mountains and keep hidden. The weather beat everybody.
In Berlin, SS General Arthur Nieb, head of Germany's criminal police, was ordered to compile the death list. As escapers came into custody, he decided who would live and who would die. The Gestapo would carry out the killings until 50 were dead. Far to the west, Buschel and Scheidauer had reached the border town of Saarbrücken. It was less than an hour's walk to France. And their passes got them through. Then it all went wrong. A policeman called out, "Good luck," and Scheidauer answered in English. It was an old trick, and it cost them their freedom. For 2 days they held out, refusing to give their names or any other details. But under threat of being shot as spies, they came clean and admitted they were escaped prisoners, believing they would be returned to Zagan. Tom Kirby Green and Gordon Kidder made it to Czechoslovakia, but they got no further. They were captured near the Austrian border. Evidence suggests that during interrogation they were tortured.
The Gestapo arrived. We could recognize them because they were dressed like, Hollywood Gestapo agents, long leather coats and so on. We saw the guys being taken away. We didn't know who was who.
Yes, I remember this. It was the 29th of March. 4 names were called out. Skantiklas, Pavlok, Kevnarski, and Werner. He said, these men are to pack up their things and follow me. But we thought they were going back to Zagan.
At the same time, in 7 jails all over Germany, other names were being called out. In all, 18 escapers were moved that day and told they were returning to the camp. Among them, Tom Kirby Green and Gordon Kidder, released after 2 days' interrogation. Some hours into the journey, they were invited to get out and stretch their legs.
I knew he was a prisoner of war. I knew about barbed wire and that sort of thing. Everyone was saying how he was safe now. He was safe now. So I didn't worry. And they also said, and I believed them, and I wanted to believe them, that I would see him again one day.
Like all the victims, Tom Kirby Green's death certificate read simply, "shot while trying to escape."
Tell me exactly what happened.
I was called in to see my superior. He had a teleprint in front of him and asked me if I'd ever been in action. I said I hadn't. Then he said, what I am telling you now must remain secret. There are 2 English flyers at Saarbrücken. They are to be shot on the orders of the Führer. I said that couldn't be right, to shoot unarmed officers. He replied, you are acting on my orders and will follow my instructions.
The officers were Roger Bushell and Bernard Scheidauer.
We drove for some distance, then the driver was ordered to stop. We got out and told the prisoners they should get out and stretch their legs, as we had a long way to go. I was standing near the car, just behind the English flyer. I would say I was about 5 meters away from him. My fellow officer was standing just behind the other man, the Frenchman. We raised our pistols together, and we both fired. He just crumpled up and fell on his right side. As I walked near him, I could see there was still movement, so I put my gun near his temple and fired again. He died immediately. I knew that what I had been ordered to do was wrong. I said so and was told to get on with it. What else could I do? If I had not done it, someone else would have done it. If we had all refused, we would all have been shot. But I have always expected to answer for this deed I never wished to do. And now it is the end of the road.
By March the 30th, 6 days after the escape, Roger Bushell and 21 of his men were dead. Many more were in German custody. But a handful remained on the run. Dennis Cochrane had gone to ground for a while, merging with a gang of foreign workers, street sweeping in Frankfurt, before moving on again. Now he was 550 miles from the camp, and near his journey's end. Switzerland and freedom lay just across the Rhine.
The door opened about 5 in the morning. The Meister put his head round the corner and said, Aussteig, come. I said, "You get up, come with me." I said, "Why?" He said, "You'll find out." Well, at the bottom of the stairs, there was a couple of square-shouldered Gestapo types. One of them produced a revolver and said, "Machst du keine Dummheit? Don't do anything stupid." We drove out of Berlin, came to a dark wood, and out of the dark wood rose up a big wall with electric wire on top of it. And I reckon this was guard towers. I reckon this was my destination. I wasn't far wrong. The SS officer in front told me to get out. He said, "Oh, Herr James," he said, "this is a nice place." He said, "You will not escape from here." Marched down to the end hut, where I came face to face with Wing's Day, where Wing Commander Day had been a senior British officer. Oh, I said, "Hello, sir, where am I? It's just Colditz." And he said, "No, I wish to hell it was, but the only way out of here is up the chimney at Sachsenhausen concentration camp."
Dennis Cochrane nearly made it all the way. But he was arrested right on the Swiss frontier, within sight of freedom. It's almost certain that it was his forged pass that finally gave him away. The Germans had changed the layout of all official passes in an attempt to catch the escapers.
By order of the Führer, the Reichsführer SS has ordered that the British airman Cochrane will be taken over by officials of your office, and during transport in the direction Breslau will be shot whilst trying to escape. The shooting will be done in such a way that the prisoner concerned will be unaware of what is going to happen. Signed, Müller, Lieutenant General of Police. Lurach, I think, was the last place he was picked up, which is a long way. You see, 7 nights he was away from the camp. 7 days, 7 nights. I want to know what his life was like at that time. I never shall.
Dennis had been shot twice, once in the back of the head, and again after he collapsed in the back of the heart. His body was taken to a nearby concentration camp and burned.
I think Massey called everybody to attention. We all stood up briefly, and he was obviously deeply moved. He said, I was called to the commandant's office this morning, where he gave me the awful news that of the 76 officers who went out of the tunnel, 50 have been killed.
The senior officer was told this. His immediate reaction was how many were wounded. And after certain denials, the Germans admitted that none were wounded, they were all killed.
And then a few days later, a list appeared. There was a knot round this notice board all day long. There were people going up and reading it again, not believing it could be true, really.
I know that I think it was Al Haik whose toes were frostbitten, but he was shot trying to escape. He could hardly walk.
One felt that it was just part of the huge wheel of fate, you know, that there, but all my friends, a lot of my friends had been killed. Well, there, but for the grace of God, well, I could have gone too.
I don't know, at this stage, I suppose you're just lucky, felt how lucky you were that you'd survived. Just shock mainly, I suppose, and some relief and wonder. Why the heck wasn't I one of them?
Of the 76 who'd got out, only 3 had made it home. The other survivors remained in German custody until the end of the war.
Dear Angela, dear Ingeborg, dear Helga, you dears of mine. I am sorry I could not say goodbye to you. I am a prisoner now because of carrying out an official order, and now I'm waiting for justice. If I did not tell you anything, it was because I did not want to worry you. How much easier it would be to suffer death 3 times in order to stop this happening to you, and especially the children. Be brave. I shall write again if I can. Ever your faithful husband, your daddy, and your Emil.
I can remember being with my father when he opened the telegram. Just a bland statement, shot trying to escape, details to follow. And that was all. They didn't have anything else to say at the time, you see, to tell us. He just read it and passed it to me. And it was just a sort of numbness, you know.
My mother came to see me for the day. It wasn't my birthday, and I had a sort of day out of school, and I didn't question it really because I was so pleased to see her. And it was wonderful to have a day to be taken off for tea somewhere by your mum, and as usual, when the time came for her to go, she was very tearful. She always was whenever we parted. And so it didn't seem to have a special significance. She couldn't bring herself to tell me the moment when she came in order to tell me that he died. Her courage failed her then. She, completely understandably, but she said to me many, many years later that she felt she'd really let me down. Which of course she hadn't.
McKenna's investigation sent 18 Gestapo officers to trial for murder. 5 were given prison terms ranging from 10 years to life. 13 were sentenced to death. Emil Schultz was hanged on February the 26th, 1948, in the yard at the British prison at Hameln, near Hamburg. The remains of the 50 were brought back to the camp by the Gestapo in the summer of 1944. Their final resting place is in Poznan, Poland, just a few miles from the camp they fought so hard to escape.
Hank Berkland, Gordon Bratell, Johnny Bull,
Roger Bushell, Mike Casey, Jimmy Cantona, Arnold Christensen,
Dennis Cochran, Ian Cross, Haldor Espelid, Brian Evans, Niels Fuglesang, Johannes Goose.
Was it worth it? They did say that 100,000 troops were involved in searching. But I suppose we did cause a lot of disruption, I suppose. But was it worth it? I don't think so.
Geheime Staatspolizei, Ihren Ausweis bitte. Ah, français.
Jawohl.
Commençons.
Oui. Parlez-vous français?
Un peu.
Votre accent est très bon.
Oh, je l'ai tout fait dans l'école supérieure. Eh bien, Passez. Si. Au revoir, monsieur. Au revoir. Good luck.
Thank you.
Halt, die Schieße! Zwei vom Lager sind getürmt! Engländer! Los! Alles einsteigen, weitermachen! Einsteigen, bitte! Hände hoch, nicht bewegen! Was soll das?
Ja, Englisch. Engländer. Sie betreuen mich mit einer Pistole? Nehmen Sie sie sofort weg. Ach, Sie sind Deutscher. Selbstverständlich. Schon gut, weitergehen. Entschuldigung. Herr Bartlett?
Oh, ist erfreulich. Your German is good. And I hear also your French. Your arms. Up!
Why is everyone obsessed with The Great Escape? Because it's epic. But Żagan's story goes way deeper. Join Mackie and Jamie as we wander. Żagań, a place born in the 12th century, Polish dukes, Bohemian rulers, Prussians, and more. Start at the dramatic Żagań Palace, glide past the 13th century Augustinian monastery, stop at the Stalag Luft III Museum. Remember the bravery behind The Great Escape. Medieval walls, Baroque grandeur, wartime history. Żagań is a compact time capsule with surprises on every corner. Ready for a quick history sprint with laughs, facts, a few chills? Let's go.
German. Zagan is a historic town in western Poland, Lubusz Voivodeship, on the Bóbr River with over 23,000 inhabitants. Founded in the 12th century, it is known for the 17th century ducal palace and Augustinian monastery, and as the site of the WWII Stalag Luft III prisoner of war camp, famous for The Great Escape. Key details about Aga. Location & geography. Located in Lower Silesia, it serves as the capital of Żagań County. The town is surrounded by forests, with over 50% of the area covered by nature. History. Established in the 12th century by Bolshoi the Curly, it was a significant principality 1274-1935. Key attractions. Stalag Luft III Pal Camp Museum. Site of the Allied Airmen's Breakout. Ducal Palace & Park. A major Baroque style palace complex. Augustinian Monastery. A historic site containing a library and the Church of the Assumption. Military significance. The town hosts the Polish 11th Armored Cavalry Division and rotates American Armored Brigade combat teams. In a different context, Zagan is also known in demonology as a great king and president of hell, often described as a griffin-winged bull. Adu is a historic town in western Poland, Lubusz Voivodeship, on the Bóbr River. Known for the World War II Stalag Luft III prisoner of war campsite of the Great Escape and its 13th century ducal palace. It is a military hub hosting the 11th Armored Cavalry Division, with a population of over 23,000. Key details about Adu. History & landmarks. Founded in the 12th century, it was the capital of a principality 1274-1935, and features the Augustinian Monastery, the Ducal Palace and Park, and the Pal Camps Museum. The Great Escape. The Stalag Luft III Museum commemorates the 1944 escape by Allied airmen. Military significance. It is home to the Polish 11th Armored Cavalry Division and hosts rotating U.S. troops. Geography. Located in Lower Silesia, with over 50% of its area covered by forests. Alternatively, Zagan or Zagan is a figure in demonology, described as a great king and president of hell, often depicted as a bull with griffin wings that transforms into a man. Adu German. Zagan, Poland, was a major World War II site hosting several German prisoner of war camps, most notably Stalag Luft III, the site of the famous Great Escape by Allied airmen in March 1944. Located in Lower Silesia, it also contained the brutal Stalag Viiic for other Allied personnel and was liberated by Soviet forces in February 1945. Defects about Zagan in WWII. Stalag Luft III. Opened in 1942 specifically for captured Allied Air Force personnel, housing over 10,000 prisoners. It was divided into several compounds, including North, East, and West. The Great Escape. On March 24 to 25, 1944, 76 Allied officers escaped through a tunnel nicknamed Harry, in the North Compound. 50 of the escapees were murdered by the Gestapo on Hitler's orders. Stalag Viiic. Adjacent to Stalag Luft III, this camp held thousands of other Allied prisoners, including many from the Soviet Union who faced brutal conditions, according to TripAdvisor users. Camp conditions & liberation. Despite being for Air Force officers, escape attempts were frequent. The camps were evacuated in January 1945 during the cold winter, with prisoners marching to Spremberg before the Soviets arrived in February. Museum. Today, the Stalag Luft III Museum in Adu features a reconstruction of the camp, replica tunnel, and artifacts, located in the original forest area.
We've just arrived in Berlin at the Wiener Haus Hotel, and this is what the room is like. This is a twin room. Wardrobe. There's just this small space here. Remember guys, this is for 2 people. You've got a couple of shelves, a TV, some netty thing, a table with a picture of a person smoking a pipe with a red piece of plastic across. You have a sign there, basic remote control, basic table there, lamp, light, which operates by that and that. A couple of decorations on the wall. Your view of Berlin from outside. You have got damage on the curtain there. I don't know if you can see it, it's just damage there. Of looks like makeup. A couple of chairs. Bedside table there. A bed there. This is a twin room, by the way. You've got like a seat table there. Lights there. Lights there, as you can see. Really soft pillow. The bed's not too bad, but quite firm. The temperature thing there, does it work? Yes, it does. So we want it low, so let's press this button. Really slow, guys, but it does count down. The max you can have is 16. We're going to have a look at the bathroom in a minute. This is the mirror there. This is your bathroom. Very, very small. Very small. Towels. An hairdryer. A sink.
Yeah. No for personal enough to get in here.
You've got a bath there, and a basic shower there, some tables there, towels there, sorry, and your toilet, of course. It does flush. You've got some soap there and the glass there, and of course your door there. You've got one of them silly sockets you've got to put your card in for the lights to come on. And this is your outside of your hotel. And this is your room, guys.
Goodbye, 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 good friends, goodbye, it's time to go and say fuck off till next time you see Jamie and Mackie Hall. Yes.
That's all, folks.